You want us to talk about how movies have aged? As you wish.
Welcome back to HIVEMIND Unlimited.
And welcome to another episode of How Did It Age, where we talk about older movies and see how they've aged with modern context. Today's movie is our oldest one yet.
Yes.
1987's The Princess Bride.
Wow, who else was born in 1987?
Taylor Swift was born in 1989. Shake it off, shake it off, oh.
Wow, do you think this had anything to do with her?
No, not at all. I bet she's seen it, though. She probably would love this.
Of course.
Anyway, this movie is awesome. I'll just say that right off the bat.
Yeah.
This movie's great. If you have not seen it, I know we've got a lot of younger viewers of our channel. Please check it out.
Yes. And subscribe to our Patreon if you want to know which movie we're watching next. It's kind of like a movie club. We let you know a week in advance. It's only $5. Best way to support us.
We also have membership on our main channel for $5 a month that gives you that same privilege. And we have a newsletter that is free to subscribe to, and it comes out every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time.
It's powered by Beehive, Riley.
It is powered by Beehive, and we do exclusive interviews with guests who've been on HIVEMIND before, as well as recipes, album recommendations, a bunch of other stuff, and it's fun.
Sometimes a viral video of a zoo animal, too.
Yeah, we do an animal of the week.
Sometimes.
But it's a weekly newsletter.
Anyway, we are here today to talk about The Princess Bride, the 1987 film by Rob Reiner.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this movie?
This movie is kind of like an OG cult classic.
Yeah, a comedy classic.
Yeah, $16 million budget, made about 30.8 in its day. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like a box office smasheroo bonanza. But once it hit VHS videotape, that's a videotape that you could watch a movie at home back in the day.
It's a rectangular prism that you shove into another rectangle.
Yes. Then it just kind of it started living this whole other life of its own.
Yeah.
This is on the heel of 1984's Spinal Tap, Rob Reiner's kind of first bona fide movie, and he was really set on adapting this William Goldman book from 1973. A lot of people have tried to do this before. It got batted around studio to studio. Christopher Reeves wanted to play Wesley. It was a whole thing. There were a lot of ideas for this. This book was like going to be made a movie, and thankfully for us, it fell into the right hands here.
Yeah, this is Spinal Tap is a parody, kind of the first mockumentary that was very, very popular. And a lot of people, if you've seen like Pop Star, Lonely Island, this is Spinal Tap was like that for rock in a lot of ways. And this is also, it's kind of one of those bait and switch type of movies where this is a parody of a certain genre of movie, but was marketed as that genre.
Yeah, it's like a meta fantasy.
Totally.
It has rave reviews. It has an 8 out of 10 on IMDb, a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm dropping Metacritic because who cares about that? And I'm sorry I've been saying that one.
That's all right.
I'm going to start using Letterboxd. This has an average of 4.1 on Letterboxd, which is amazing.
And I haven't met a critic who didn't like this movie.
And our guy Raj gave it 3.5 stars and says it's just full of good-hearted fun, which is true.
Yeah. So the plot of this movie, it starts with a boy who is sick or getting over being sick. And you assume maybe he's like 8 or 9 years old and presumably in Chicago as well.
He's got a Bears jersey on.
And he has some Cubs stuff on the wall.
Yeah.
His mom says that his grandfather is going to come over and read him a story. And he's not excited about it. No. And then the grandfather sits down. He's a very eccentric old Jewish man who is reading the story to him, and he's not into it. But you kind of feel him start to get into it as the movie goes on. And I'll get into what that does for the movie later when we talk about best lines. But then it kind of dips in and out. Mostly it just tells the story like a movie would, but there are moments where it dips back out to the grandfather reading the story, and sometimes you even get his voice baked into like narrating the actual action that's happening in the movie.
And at certain turning points in the plot, the kid will be like, that can't be how it works out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, wait. We're going to get back into it. And then you dive back in. That like kind of casual breaking of that wall serves the storytelling and like odd cheekiness of the sarcasm that is like the whole tone that's going on here. You don't just enter the fantasy world. It is like that meta fantasy where you have the real world and then you're like visualizing through the imagination of a child this storybook, which is really beautiful.
Yes. And before we get into our categories, you know, best lines, best scenes, all of that stuff, I will say I had seen this movie. It was kind of a tradition in my house to watch this movie growing up. My mom quotes it all the time. My dad likes this movie. He doesn't like a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And you had not seen it.
I had never seen it. I think I had seen it in bits and pieces, but I had never sat down and just watched it in its total.
And I think there was a little bit of that thing where it tricked you slightly. Because like when we talked about like watching The Princess Bride, you were like, I wasn't a little girl.
Yeah, of course.
You know, growing up, like why would I have seen that movie? And I will say that I very much resonated with that because I got this movie for Christmas one year.
Oh, and you were like, fuck.
And I was like, why? And my mom was like, no, trust me, you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it now, like that's why the kid in the room is such a good audience avatar for this, is he is a boy in a football jersey being read a story called The Princess Bride by his grandfather, and very much like reluctant to even want to hear the story. And I think that is a good representation of the audience. And there's going to be some people who maybe click on this and don't know this movie, some younger people who are thinking like, oh, they're going to talk about some romance movie.
Yeah, no.
And it is very much a flip of that. And I think that's why it works so well, is because you are that boy in a lot of scenarios. Even if you don't have to be a boy, like you might be like a girl or a non-binary person who just isn't super into these romantic fairy tale stories, and you don't have to be. It's very much poking fun at those, but also kind of like makes you appreciate the things that are great about those stories.
Yeah, it plays on those ancient storytelling like tropes that are, you know, pillars of storytelling for a reason.
Yeah.
Like you have the hero and the underdog and the bad prince and the girl who doesn't want to marry the prince. Like it's just like things we've all heard 1,000 times before, but it plays with them in a nuanced, very sarcastic, very quick-witted way. There is like not a breath for a laugh in this. Everything is like, every joke is like very fired from the hip, and then on to the next, on to the next. They meet so many characters. They like go throughout this world so fast that it is just like joke after joke after joke after joke.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I want to start with the grandpa before we even get into the fantasy realm. He is just a masterful line deliverer. Everything he says is hilarious.
Yeah, he doesn't get a ton of lines in this, but I love as the kid is reluctant. The thing that he's most averse to is the romance, because he's a young, he doesn't like the kissing or whatever. And he's like, oh, can we skip the kissing, blah, blah, blah. And then at one point he kind of starts to turn on that where he's like, I want to hear the whole story.
Yes.
And the grandpa goes, all right, keep your shirt on.
Yes, which is such a funny reaction to your grandson. I had that written down as a line too. It's like, all right, kid, keep your shirt on. Let me read. What does that even imply?
I don't know. I have
that the kid's like quick to get into bed.
Yeah, I don't even know what it's supposed to mean, but it's such a funny line.
He's implying that his grandson's a floozy. Like, it's just a hilarious reaction.
This story follows Princess Buttercup, who has fallen in love with a farm boy named Wesley.
Yes.
And so she's the princess, the heiress. She hasn't become the princess yet. She's obviously a very wealthy person with a lot of social capital in this kind of like fairy tale land. She at one point is riding her horse in the woods and runs across 3 of our main characters who announce themselves as 4 circus performers, which is so funny. It goes straight past you. Like, I never noticed that line. He said, we are but 4 lowly circus performers. And it's just 3 people.
That's what I mean. That's when I knew, like, I was like, oh, this is going to be hilarious. Yeah. Because they're just slipping jokes by you.
Yeah. And the characters are Vizzini, who is a short, weird guy with a speech impediment. I can't even really explain who he is. Doesn't really matter. Inigo Montoya, who is a Spanish drunk.
Yeah, a drunk swashbuckler.
Yeah, he's kind of a pirate, and he's trying to avenge the death of his father, and he knows that his father was killed by a man with 6 fingers on his right hand, and he has scars to show it, and he has one line that he repeats, and pretty much his only goal in life in his 30s is to kill the man who killed his father. Yes. And then you have Andre the Giant, who plays Fezzik, and he is just a brute of a man, but kind of the classic gentleman giant character. He very much has empathy. He cares for, he doesn't want things to be unfair. He's kind of like the moral compass of this group of weird guys.
Yeah, Vizzini is like kind of this shyster.
He's evil.
Yeah, he's evil. He's like backhanded dealings, trickery. He's trying to underpay his own employees, take advantage of them at every opportunity he gets. And then Inigo is just kind of using anyone who can get him closer to his revenge. Andre is just the giant being dragged along.
Yes. I love the dynamic between these characters. Vizzini talking to either Inigo or to Fezzik is so funny every time. So I have the line where he says, "Am I going mad or did the word think escape your lips? You were not hired for your brains, you hippopotamic landmass." I can't even deliver that line. Hippopotamic landmass.
Yeah, unbelievable.
He's talking to Fezzik there and just calling him a big brute.
He's a WWE legend.
Yeah, Andre the Giant.
Yeah. It's amazing.
You used to have to buy 3 seats on an airplane to sit there. And then turns right to Inigo Montoya and says, "And you, friendless, brainless, helpless, hopeless, do you want me to send you back to where you were, unemployed in Greenland?"
Drunk on, or couldn't even afford brandy.
It is like so funny.
Yeah, Wallace Shawn is unbelievable in this. And that's like the most shocking thing about this is that they kill him.
Oh, yeah.
The fact he dies is mind-blowing to me.
It's crazy that there's no drop-off in how enjoyable the movie is, even when he's gone.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, like, he is the comedic force here.
80% of the dialogue for, like, the first half of it, it feels like.
It's just him, and he is like a loose cannon. He's so funny. And I feel like they do kind of save that with a new character that they bring in later, who is, like, some of my favorite lines in the entire movie come from him. But unbelievable performance by Wallace Shawn.
Well, and the Count and Humperdinck's characters get a little more fleshed out as we get closer to like the wedding day.
Yeah.
And Humperdinck is hilarious in it too.
Yeah, very, very funny.
I love, so it's right as they capture the princess, they're like trying to get away and they're in the eel infested, whatever, waters.
The shrieking eels.
The shrieking eels. And they're being chased by someone and they keep getting closer. And Inigo is like
on a boat.
Yeah, on a boat.
They're on a boat and there's a boat in the distance and Inigo keeps kind of asking like,
is that getting
are
closer?
we being followed? Like, and then he's like, why would you think that? And he's like, oh, because there's a boat behind us. And like, he has to like almost convince him because for some reason Vizzini has the idea that like, there's no way we're being followed. And it's like,
be tracked.
he will. He's like, we cannot be tracked.
But Inigo says, I wonder if they're using the same wind that we're using. It's unreal. And then they get to the cliff and the whole chase scene up to there and the setup of the battle with Inigo is, that's when I really like tuned in. I was like, oh, this is fucking hilarious.
The pacing of that scene is so perfect because you've got Inigo at the top of the cliff and you've got the man in black just hanging on with no rope. And Inigo's just like, do you want me to throw you the rope? And then he's just kind of like, well, you're only going to kill me when I get up there. And he goes, I know, but like, I still want you to get up here. Like, it's just very, very funny, this push and pull. And they gain respect for each other over the course of that scene.
Oh, they're like falling in love with each other.
Yeah, it is almost a romantic scene between the man in black and Inigo Montoya. They're just complimenting each other as they fight.
Wow, you're amazing.
Yeah, he's like, where did you learn? I must know. I must know.
They both choose to fight each other left-handed to start.
Yeah.
And then switch that. And they're both so impressed with that. They're talking about the kind of sword fighting moves they're doing. Well, if I come at you with this kind of attack, obviously I'll do this defense, but you'd never think that I'd come back with this. And then he's like, but I haven't told you. I'm right-handed.
And I really, really love that I watched this movie a lot as a kid, and then coming back to it, there's the one joke where Inigo is talking to Vizzini and Fezzik and Buttercup, and they're about to leave, and he's saying, like, I'm going to fight him left-handed. And then he's like, we don't have time for that, like, you know, whatever. And he's like, no, if I do it with my right hand, it'll be over too quick.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a masturbation joke.
It's a straight up
and I never noticed. Joke. It's just a jerking off joke. He's like, I'm going to do it with my left hand because if I do it with my right hand, it'll be over far too quick.
Yeah. So I'm going to enjoy myself.
Yeah. It's great.
And then I love too that they gain enough respect for each other that he just bops him with a rock. He doesn't kill him. He just knocks him out. And then they do that later. Like they don't
He bops him with the sword on the top of the head.
Just knocks him out and go the other way.
But during that fight, I love when right at the beginning, he lets him catch his breath after he gets up from the cliff. And Montoya just says to him, he's like, I do not mean to pry, but do you by any chance happen to have 6 fingers on your right hand? And the man in black just looks up and goes, do you always begin conversations this way? And that line is just such classic comedy, like 80s comedy. It's so funny to me.
I do want to point out that the man in black is the only person of color in this whole movie. This is all white people.
Well, no, Vizzini's Sicilian.
Apparently.
And then also Inigo Montoya's Spanish.
Oh, true. Yeah, true.
Andre the Giant, I don't know what he is.
He's a giant.
He's a giant.
He's probably Romanian or something.
Yeah. One thing I do love about this movie is the pacing. It's a very easy story to follow. You understand it geographically, even like, here's the first fight, here's the second fight. But as Andre the Giant is talking to Vizzini about what to do if the man in black defeats Inigo Montoya and gets to him, he says, just hit him over the head with a rock. And he says, he's like, do it your way. Do it your way. And he just goes, my way's not very sportsmanlike. Yeah,
because it's got no finesse. He's just hiding, and then he's going to hit him with a big rock.
He wants a fair fight.
Yeah, he wants it to be fun.
And he's just a big man. It's so awesome.
I love as the man in black is defeating Fezzik, he says, in the meantime, dream of large women, and then knocks him out.
See, that line I didn't like,
I love that line.
It's just like old type of comedy where I'm just like, I get it, but I don't know. So after somehow the man in black chokes out Andre the Giant and leaves him on the ground, he goes and meets Vizzini, who is at a table ready to challenge the man in black to a battle of wits, which is so funny that this man has a sword. Yeah.
But it's showing how multifaceted he is. He has the finesse to take down the best swords fighter. He has the strength to choke out the giant. And now his final battle is the battle of wits. It's like a troll crossing a bridge or something.
And the battle of wits here is that Vizzini has 2 glasses of wine, and Wesley, actually, man in black, spoiler alert, I guess, takes the wine and takes iocane powder and pours it into one glass. And Vizzini has to figure out which one is poisoned and drink that one. And Vizzini he makes a meal out of it. He is just like, you would not put the poison in one in front of you because you know that I'm smart enough to switch them. But you also would not put the one in front of me because you must know that I'm Sicilian. And like he just like finds all of these reasons to just teeter-totter on which one he's going to drink. But one thing that he does at the end of that, the line that he delivers is so funny.
The Land, War, and Asia line?
Yes, but then right after that where he just says, never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line, and laughs and laughs and laughs until he passes out because the poison was in both cups. And the man in black obviously
had worked up
an immunity to iocane powder.
Of course. Never go into a land war in Asia and never go in on a Sicilian when death is on the line. Unbelievable line there. That monologue is just perfect.
That is my second favorite scene in the entire movie is that battle of wits scene, because you just get so much Vizzini and you get so much of, honestly, there's a really, really good stoicism to Wesley's character throughout this movie that plays well against the comedy. It is so funny when he delivers lines with a straight face and he's just this pretty boy. And it works really well. Vizzini and him have a great dynamic.
All right. I feel like we're touching a lot on scenes here already, so I'm just going to rapid fire some random lines real quick and then let's dive into scenes.
Sure.
Life is pain. Everyone who says differently is selling something. Time, like that is an amazing line.
I was going to say, there are some lines in this that are not just funny, but they're iconic and they're like well written. That's one I had written down, and one that I called my mom after we watched the movie, and I was like, I don't remember this. This line is so powerful for some reason. It's very funny, but it's just like, life is pain, Your Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something.
The rodents of an unusual size. And then they make the abbreviation of it.
ROUS.
The ROUS. Oh, rodents of an unusual size. Ridiculous line there because we abbreviate. I wonder if that, like, I don't know if that's just like always been funny, just making an abbreviation that's not an abbreviation.
Totally.
One of my favorite jokes of all time. When Humperdinck tells Buttercup to please consider him as an alternative to suicide. Love that line. So funny.
He says, like, I will send out my 4 strongest ships to go deliver a message to your Wesley, and if they come back empty-handed and he has died, then please consider me as an alternative to suicide.
Another Humperdinck line that is great when they're like taking him down to the pain machine or whatever. He's like, oh, can we do this quick? I have my country's 500th anniversary, my wife to murder. I'm swamped. He's like listing his things to do, which include murdering his wife. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Andre the Giant yelling, everybody move, is like his outburst of energy. Hilarious. Billy Crystal is Miracle Max. Every line is amazing of his.
We'll get into it in scenes, but I do want to say my favorite line in the entire movie is, Sonny, true love is the greatest thing in the world, except for a nice MLT. A mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice and lean and the tomato is ripe. They're so perky. I love that, but that's not what he said. He distinctively said to blave. And as we all know, to blave means to bluff. So you're probably playing cards and he cheated. It doesn't even make sense without the context, but it is laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
And that's the character I was referring to when I say they do kill off Vizzini in this movie. And then later you get this perfect improv scene, which we'll talk more about in our best scenes.
Cameo.
Yeah.
My favorite line goes to after the wedding when she is being walked back up to the whatever honeymoon suite, and she's being walked by the king who's going to die, and Humperdinck's going to take over the kingdom from him. He's escorting Buttercup up to her room, and he's lost it, and the wedding has gone terrible. Yeah. They've broken in and ruined everything, and he just goes, strange wedding. Very strange. And then she says, I'm going to go to my room and kill myself. And he goes, enjoy. It's just like the senile response to the terrible wedding and her threatening suicide. It's his only lines. And like
the whole strange wedding.
Strange wedding. Like,
very strange.
Shit.
Very unusual wedding.
Yeah. And then right as she's about to do the deed, she goes to stab herself, and paralyzed Wesley is in the bed, and he goes, stop. There's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world, and it'd be a shame if you harmed yours. Which is it's another old kind of comedy line, but
that's great.
Yeah,
I mean, that's still for Wesley. It really works.
Yeah, because he hasn't been like crude the whole time, and then he's like, "Stop it! You got perfect boobs, darling. Don't kill yourself."
Yeah, the iconic lines too that I just will quickly point out is obviously the quotable ones. Inconceivable, being said by Vizzini. I always quote that. And then obviously Inigo Montoya saying, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. He says it many times, and it is awesome. There's something really just perfect about it. And then the last two lines that I'll touch on are both from the grandpa at the very end of the movie. I just love the way that he ties up this story. He says, since the invention of the kiss, there have been 5 kisses that were rated the most passionate, the most pure. This one left them all behind. The end. Yes. It is perfect. It's so rated.
Yeah, there have been 5 kisses.
Yeah, these 5 kisses. And it's just this one's the best one. Yeah. And then also at the end, and this is kind of like scene, but it's about what he says, where when he's getting up to leave after finishing the story and the grandson's still in the bed, he touches every pocket on himself, goes, okay, all right, okay, all right. And he goes, shalom, and leaves. It is laugh out loud funny.
It's awesome. Gathering his phone, wallet, and keys. Yeah.
Now, for a movie that has aged pretty well and is kind of frozen in time, I only have a few worst things. Yeah. The Australia joke that they make is kind of a weird one.
What's that?
Vizzini makes a joke where he said, Australia is an island full of criminals.
Yeah.
But I understand what it means, but I'm just saying, like, it's a weird joke nowadays.
Yeah, but it's supposed to take place in a feudal time.
Yeah.
And that is straight up what they were doing.
Yeah.
Was just sending the criminals there. And Vizzini's, like, definitely believable as, like, a borderline racist.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. That one works for me.
It's still fine, but it just like, it's the one that made me turn my head. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. And then some of the gender dynamics are questionable. They're not horrible for the time. And I think they are kind of poking fun at them.
Yes.
But they're obviously, you know, it's just how it is.
Well, yeah, and it's the princess story. So you're going to have the damsel in distress being saved by this other, not a knight in shining armor in this case, but, you know, another masculine character who's taking down, like, kind of the pompous, like, can't fight royalty prince.
Yeah, and it's kind of love versus anti-love. It's like love versus like the arranged marriage of royalty sort of thing. And so it does work, but I will say there is very little focus on female antagonists in this. It is about the guys.
Her name is Buttercup.
Yeah.
Everybody else has real names and they just call her Princess Buttercup. That is my that's my biggest gripe with the movie. It's funny, but I don't know. Everybody's got funny names in this, but Buttercup is like
it's funny though. I think that's like what makes it fun. It's Humperdinck.
Yeah, but that's like I don't know. It just Buttercup doesn't work as
I will say
funny.
really quick, by the way, Humperdinck has to be like a predecessor for Lord Farquaad, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
I think they definitely got inspiration from Humperdinck for Lord Farquaad.
Big time.
They just made him like way shorter.
Yeah. I have the Shrieking Eels scene down as one of my favorites. That scene is awesome. You have, like we talked about, they're being chased. You have Inigo's like dialogue there, and then she jumps in, and you get two animatronic beasts in this. The eels being the one I feel like that's like better for whatever reason.
It works better. It seems more believable. Yeah.
Yeah, because the rat is like so bad, and that scene honestly goes on a little too long.
Oh yeah, the rodents of unusual size.
Yes, the giant rat scene like really drags on to like, I don't know, that's like the one moment that there's supposed to be actual suspense. Like Wesley's like starting to lose the fight and Buttercup's just like hitting it with a stick, and it's like it goes on about 2 minutes too long. I'm like, all right, let's get out of here.
Right,
this is ridiculous. But I love the shrieking eels. She's out in the water. They're hissing and running at her, and she just gets scooped up by Andre the Giant.
And I love also that it cuts away back to the grandfather telling the story where he's like, now she doesn't get eaten by the eels.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of hard to believe because of the way that the eel is coming towards her. Like you're just kind of like, well, okay.
She's fucked.
Yeah. And then he's just like, now she doesn't get eaten. And then it's just like, boom.
I'm close with you on the poison wine scene. That's like right there for my favorite, but my favorite scene goes to the Miracle Max.
Absolutely.
Bringing dead Wesley into Billy Crystal's house, that whole cameo, his wife coming out, being like, the way she treats him, he's dead set on it being like a gambling thing. It's unbelievable. The mutton line.
Yeah. I wrote it as like, they're like an argumentative, very Jewish witch and warlock couple who are having like normal marital arguments, but like they're a witch and a warlock. They're like using machines to revive somebody and they're arguing about how much money he's going to get paid for it. It is like so outrageous and so ridiculous. And I love that it also does the thing where it takes like money as incentive, and the only thing that can go above that is revenge. So it's like he's like, he won't do it for the money that they're gonna give him, and then he will do it because he hates Humperdinck.
Yes. Speaking of the weird gender roles, Wesley threatens to backhand Buttercup at one point. That's like the one scene where I was like, ho, no, let's chill out, Rob. He didn't need that one. He's like, you know nothing about pirates and being tough, and she's like,
yeah, and that also, it plays into this weird thing where when he has that mask on, he's the man in black. He's also like questioning her. It's so funny that she doesn't recognize him or his voice or anything. They're supposed to be like in love, and it's her long lost love who she thinks is dead. And then until he says, as you wish.
Yes.
Which is his repeated line as the farm boy. Until he says that as he's falling down a hill, which we'll get to, she doesn't even recognize him. And so he's kind of like this evil, swashbuckling piece of shit character until he takes the mask off. And then they're just right back to where they started, fully in love.
He's the Dread Pirate
Roberts.
The Dread Pirate Roberts, which is hilarious.
And that turns out to be like, that's not a name, but rather like a title that is like carried down and passed on. And it's implied at the end of this movie that Inigo Montoya becomes Dread Pirate Roberts because he doesn't know what to do the rest of his life because all he ever cared about is revenge.
I do want to give a quick shout out to the Count and his machine.
Oh yeah,
his torture machine. When he takes him down the machine, the Count is sadistic. He's obsessed with pain. And when he first gets him down to the evil torture machine, he's making him do a survey about how good the machine is. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, like how was it? He's like,
how much pain are you feeling right now?
Like, okay. And he's like, I love that he's interested in the feedback from his customer of pain in that. It just makes him so funny. He's like a bureaucratic, sadistic little freak.
Yeah. And then the hill scene. Yeah. I mean, It's such an iconic scene, and it's one that I think predates another movie we talked about, Hot Rod.
Yeah.
Where you have the continuous falling scene where Rod just falls down a hill. This one is, it drags it out.
It's been replicated so many times.
Totally.
It's even in the Kung Fu movie where it's just a bunch of Kung Fu movies cut together.
You've told me about
Kung Pao Fury.
Yeah.
Kung Pao Fury. That movie's origin is a baby being thrown down a hill and it rolls for like a mile.
Yeah.
And then it just hits the road and is like, and a lady picks it up, and it's totally all kind of comes back to this.
Because I love that when Buttercup realizes that it is Wesley when he says "as you wish," she immediately, she doesn't like find a way to go around.
No.
She
joins him
right away. It's like, I'm falling down this hill as well, and they're both completely fine when they get to the bottom.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Last great scene that kind of competes for top scene for me is Inigo's final fight scene.
Yes,
that chase through the castle, his repetition of his little monologue there, or the line, the revenge line, and then he gets stabbed, and the dragging out of his like what seems like an apparent death to like regaining his strength, repeating the mantra, getting back up and fighting, and then eventually beating the Count in a sword fight, and then seemingly being all right. I mean, he kind of like hobbles out.
Yeah, he jumps out of a window onto a horse. Like, I mean, he's fine. For some reason, he gets stabbed through the stomach, and he's just completely fine.
Oh, hilarious. Like I said earlier, it is an all-white cast. This is 1987, but contrary to popular belief, people of color existed then.
Yeah, I've heard that. I wasn't alive, but I've heard.
And the animatronic rat.
Yeah.
Honestly, it like works. We were talking about how every fantasy movie from the mid to late 80s has this, like, in the Labyrinth, you have the Land of Eternal Stench.
Yeah.
You have, what is this called? The Fire Swamp.
Yep.
And then in Never Ending Story, I believe there's like a stinky swamp too.
Yeah.
Just like a part of fantasy tales, I guess, is like a dark, stinky, dangerous swamp.
You have to get nasty and gross. It has to be, like, I told Graydon when I was watching this movie growing up, I would skip that scene. Yeah. One, probably because it does drag on a little bit too long, but also it was not that I was scared of it. It was just gross.
I used to skip the scene in The Labyrinth, The Land of Eternal Stench. And yes, I watched The Labyrinth a lot as a kid, which is weird. But these 80s fantasy movies are campy. That animatronic rat is just weird, but if it was done today, it would have been like CGI.
I literally wrote down, like, this would have a lot of ridiculous CGI if it was made now, and I think that would take away from the charm of the movie.
Right.
And also, I think there'd be less of a focus on dialogue. I feel like that's what I do love about 80s movies, 80s comedies specifically, is that there is this focus on the dialogue that you don't get in modern movies because you need more action. Especially, this could have been way more action heavy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a focus on that because during the action, they're just saying hilarious shit.
Yes.
And then the only thing that I think would be improved nowadays is I said it could have been mixed better. It's hard to understand some of them when they're giving their lines. And that's just a product of, like, it's the 80s. And so they got better at that stuff over time.
Yeah. And I do think there is like kind of an undercurrent in the sarcasm here that is like kind of raunchy, and is kind of like edgy-er, especially for the time. And like, I think if you cleaned that up, it loses, like, to make the comedy of this movie too intentional and just too set up for jokes, I feel like that's kills the whole vibe. That's
yeah, absolutely. It's supposed to be as low budget feeling as it is.
Yes.
I hate to say it, but this movie would suit vintage Johnny Depp so well.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's really good at this is his zone. He does that thing really well. So if it were like the 2000s when they remade it, that's my recast there. And then I did a modern one where I know I've used this group before, but Almost Friday is so good at doing these like these period piece things, these mystical worlds where they talk like this, you know? And I said Veronica Slowakowska is great in that type of zone too. Yes. And another friend of the show, Chloe Trost, would be like, all of those people, I feel like there's a really good crop of improv and sketch comedians coming up right now that love to play with parody and love to play with this specific time period that I could see them making a really good one now.
Yeah, I would recast John Cena as the Giant because oddly enough, Andre the Giant is kind of like the pioneer for WWE stars taking over Hollywood.
Yeah, Dave Bautista,
John Cena, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah.
Like the pipeline from WWE to major Hollywood motion picture is crazy, and we forget that Andre the Giant kind of paved that way because I feel like most people that don't like wrestling only even know him from this.
Totally. And I think that the difference there is that the guys now are these like jacked hot dudes.
Yeah.
And Andre the Giant is like, not to say anything of like whether he's attractive or not. I'm saying
not
like
conventionally.
Like he looks like he belongs in this world as the Giant.
He looks like a giant troll man.
Nah,
a giant evil troll man.
Not evil. He's actually the nicest character in the movie.
Yeah.
But there's something I do love about like, it makes sense that he would, back then, they would see him as this big giant.
Maybe we'll use The Undertaker.
Yeah, he's like skinny and writes books now, but sure.
And then I have Sydney Sweeney as Buttercup.
Okay.
She gets whatever she wants in Hollywood.
She shouldn't be in movies.
She can do whatever she wants. Every movie gets made she wants to do, and if she wants to do The Princess Bride, she should do it as Buttercup.
Whatever. It should be like Keira Knightley or Natalie Portman or...
Too old and not beautiful enough and not nearly as talented.
Oh, talented. Oh my gosh.
Let's get into soundtrack.
We both have the same thing.
Mark Knopfler.
We looked this up. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits plays the guitar in this movie.
Fuck yeah.
And I said to Graydon before I knew it was Mark Knopfler, it is such a funny little pasture theme.
Yeah.
Like it's this countryside feel to it that is so like happy, but also kind of dramatic that it works perfectly in a parody movie.
Yep.
And it makes a lot of sense that it's Mark Knopfler.
Well, and it's like slapstick fantasy too, with some of the scoring, like in some of the fight scenes when there's no dialogue, you have zun, zun, run, like you have
like as they hit, they're scoring it. They're really like sitting and scoring it to the scene happening.
Yes, and it has like lute and like, harpsichord.
Yeah.
Like it all sounds like very old feudal royal times. It's very true to that. It's corny in a funny way. Like it's so on the nose.
Yes.
And then you just have like just the choreography of the fight scenes with the music is just so perfect. And you'll even have, I feel like there's certain scenes where like the sound will express the emotion as you might have done in like early Hollywood stuff.
Yep.
Where like maybe not silent films, but like early talking movies, you'll have like someone sad and it'll be like, like it's like so dramatic and over the top and really helps to portray the emotion and comedy.
Yeah, and parody is one of my favorite genres of comedy. I just like, there's something about it that when it's done well, I really like it. And I feel like the soundtrack serves it here in a similar way that the soundtrack of Hot Rod serves that one, where it's very over the top and on the nose rock music for Hot Rod because he is like supposed to be this motorcycle Evel Knievel type character, but really he's like a shitty stuntman.
Yeah.
And here it's supposed to be that these are like these brave warriors, but really they're all morons.
Yes. Idiots and drunks.
Like none of them are really good at what they do. And so it's just, it works perfectly. I love the soundtrack here.
Yeah. You recommending this one, Riley?
Please go watch it.
Yes.
If you're a young bird, I assume this video will not get as many clicks as some of our other ones because it's not like a childhood movie for a lot of people in the 2000s.
We should just name it Transformers.
Transformers, how did it age?
Yeah. And then they get in.
Do you think they would, is that like going to be the most
biggest
clickable?
movie? Yeah, probably.
You think so?
Transformers.
What if we call it Infinity War?
Transformers. Shia LaBeouf. That one.
Let's just do a new movie. Challengers, how did it age?
Oh, perfect.
And it just has like Zendaya and the tennis boys.
Yeah.
And the tennis rats. And then this time, and then they get in there and they're like, uh-oh. So we bait and switch them.
Yes.
I like that.
Got it.
Shrek.
Perfect.
It's honestly, it's very Shrek-esque. This movie is kind of like Shrek.
I said I'd recommend it too, and it's a very innocent recommendation. I wouldn't recommend it to someone who's like cold and jaded.
Right.
I feel like this movie did restore a little bit of my innocence.
You got to learn to laugh, man. And you're doing just fine.
I'm doing all right.
Keep studying.
Thanks, man.
Fuck. One more thing before we get to the very end, I will say Fred Savage plays the boy in the bed, and he went on to direct a lot of stuff, including Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
And it's just hilarious that that's Fred Savage as a little boy.
Yeah, Rob Reiner and his whole like group, the Albert Brooks kind of sphere, Rob Reiner, all these guys are like Billy Crystal. He went on to do When Harry Met Sally after this with Billy Crystal. Like this whole little community of comedians / dramatic actors was amazing. Rob Reiner went on to do like Misery and All the President's Men. Like some crazy movies.
They're real like true thespians, a lot of them, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think that's why Fred Savage didn't have a great like film career on screen, but went on to direct a lot of stuff very competently. And I like the stuff that he directs, especially in comedy. So
and the Count, Christopher Guest, went on to marry Jamie Lee Curtis. So good for you, bro.
You can't. Oh. Is that a secret handshake or?
Between me and Christopher Guest. Yeah, he's at home watching this. He's probably got Jamie Lee Curtis on his lap. Give it up, bro. I mean, that's a great feat of anyone in Hollywood.
I haven't seen her feet, so I don't really know.
Just one, so. I gave it 4 stars, and I said, the wonder of childhood exists eternally through the magic of film.
Wow, I like ours are kind of similar.
Yeah.
Very close to giving this 5 stars, by the way, because I just love this movie so much.
What is a 5-star movie for you? If this isn't, I thought for sure you were going to give this 5 stars.
Donnie Darko.
Okay.
Is like 5 stars for me.
Super funny.
Zodiac.
Okay.
Wet Hot American Summer.
We'll get to them.
Yeah, whatever. And my review is, I was that kid in the bedroom, being swept away by the wonder of this old tale. Now I'm a man who wakes up, puts on a suit, and drives to work.
Ew. You were a kid in a bedroom?
At one point.
I was always a man in a suit who drove to work.
I don't think that's true. I had a Browns jersey on instead of a Bears jersey. That's the and my first name's Riley and not Fred. Other than that, I'm basically that kid.
Pretty close, yeah.
Because he's my cousin.
And your grandpa's...
I don't know if that's true.
And your grandpa's Jewish?
My grandpa's dead.
Is he dead Jewish?
No, he wasn't Jewish.
Oh.
He was a Catholic.
Not so similar after all, Riley.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what we thought about The Princess Bride.
Watch it.
Go watch that movie. And please, go subscribe to our Patreon. It's only $5 a month. You get to know which movie we're watching ahead of time. There'll be another episode of this coming out in 2 weeks. And in 1 week, we'll be posting what movie that is. Other than that, let us know which movie you want us to watch. You can comment that on Patreon, or you can comment it down below in the comment section. Become a member on the main channel. We also have a new football channel called HIVEMIND Cheap Seats. And we have HIVEMIND, the main channel, and HIVEMIND Limited. Subscribe to all those channels. And we have merch on Cope's website, including this sweatshirt. So go check that out.
Love you.
Other than that, thanks for watching.
I hope you find your Princess Bride. Whatever.
Whatever, dude. This has been HIVEMIND Unlimited, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sucking slugs off logs. Is that still as controversial as it used to be, or have we grown up as a society?
Has it ever been controversial to suck a slug off a log? I mean, Timon and Pumbaa were doing that all the time. Grub.
Timon and Pumbaa, 2 girls I used to hook up with in college.
Nobody's named Timon or Pumbaa except for
I went to a liberal arts school.